Okay, we're live.
Right. So, okay. So the task was to pretend you know nothing about it and generate a napp using. Decided to invent a thing called a napp gen, which was your helper
Yep.
through the system.
Yep.
I wrote the scenario. So for the format is a number of scenes. Where I've given. Okay, so
Okay.
that's what we're trying to do.
How were these scenarios generated? Like, how was this text made? Like this text, where did that come from?
I wrote actually spoke a free text description of where it was. So I was looking at the latest JSON.
Yep.
And I was going, right, okay, so if I'm a new user, what's going to be the thing I'm going to try and do first? And then I got it to generate a narrative. Then I edited the narrative quite heavily. And then at each point, I put it through another bot to generate what that narrative meant to the update of each state at each point. So how much information we got.
So this was the state is the napp.json, and this is you incrementally building it up over time, right?
Yeah. So you can see the first thing saying is, okay, so you want to build an app. Let's get a name.
Which models did you use to generate these? Like 4.0 and what else?
I was using 01 Mini.
01 Mini.
And I
Were you
didn't
using
use long thread. I wasn't using long thread just because Mini on platform is like really fast and it's not doing the switching around.
Yeah,
and just wanted to get through it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So the speed let our platform down.
Yeah, but that was only because, well, my impatience, got the better of me.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, so this, I guess the order of operations is first get napps running on the platform and just ignore the speed issue. Once napps are bedded in, because there'll be just a ton of stuff where we're like, oh, what about this? What about that? Once we got napps going, then come back around and do some performance enhancement on the platform, I think. Does that sound like the right thing?
Yeah. There's no reason I couldn't have done this on the platform other than the wait
speed.
time.
Yeah, which is a big one. I hate the speed as well. So,
I can also see if I can share text. You can still share public link from platform, can you?
Yeah.
I looked for that the other day, and for some reason I thought maybe they'd taken it away. Give me 2 secs. I'll share you the behind the scenes, as it were. Oh, this is not the whole thing because I lost a tab, which is never a good thing to do. I've lost a tab again. Where is it? Yeah, I close a tab. It's not for fuck's sake. Okay, not necessary. I'll send it over. I have not closed it. I'll just take you through the process. So I wrote, looked at the JSON, put on my, I know nothing about this, but my goal is to generate. I just chose one, which was an app that gives inspirational quotes for teenage soccer teams. So yeah, whatever. That has to do with school. And that seemed to touch quite a few of the points. So wrote out or dictated each of the scenarios and each step, put that in, and then had 01 Mini say, I described the JSON to it, the new JSON. I gave it the last transcript as context and told it to deprioritize that.
Okay.
But it's as background. And then I gave it, okay, so, well, my aim is to fill in this new JSON format. And here's the first thing that I want to do, which is just get started. And then it gave me this script, and then I edited the script, again, quite heavily. And then put it back in and said, now generate the state change. So we can see what's actually happening in the background. So you'll see that I've written things like napp gen does this. That's all me. That's not generated. So it's
Yep.
not assuming anything, but these are stubs, really stubs for mostly naps that I need to write. But yeah, I thought I'd stub out my own work as well as verifying whether this is getting to the right place. So now at this point, he's just added in the source of his quotes. I've just created these. They don't exist, I think.
Quotable.
I never checked, actually. I never checked, yeah. Which Dave is taken through the NL agent. Okay, so we've got, at that point, what I was thinking is you've got enough of a context to now generate the NL behind it. So why not help, by generating instructions.md and then editing, allowing the user to edit the instructions.md, and that worked quite well.
So setting this up would be like how in ChatGPT you make a GPT, and you basically start with like sort of what does it want to do, and then it tries to generate some base things for you, and then
Yeah.
in the state board, I would imagine we would have the a running version of the napp running in the state board where you can sort of toy with it.
Funny with that. Yes, absolutely. And you'll see quite a chunk of these scenes have to do with, right, okay, so here's the shitty draft, Dave. You want to work with it? But now you're working with two things, which is that's definitely a state board thing, right? So not entirely sure how we do that, because some of the state board things is, do you want to upload files? So that's an easy uploader.
Yeah.
But one of them is, this is an interesting thing, given your draft napp, let's run the draft in a sandbox and interact with that draft. And then the napp gen sees your thread and then suggests where you've got snags. And there's a specific scene here where it's like, oh, I looked at the napp, and I didn't know what to do with first. It's like, well, okay, well, let's generate three starter options just to get people going on it. But you'll see that further down. So instructions, the other thing is, at each step, what it's doing is given the previous scene and the changes we've made and the files we've made, make sure that they're all coherent. And usually it meant an update to instructions.md, because we're working on the napp itself.
Yeah, because that's where most of the work should be happening. Like honestly, like what the hell are you doing if you're trying to make tools? Like you're not.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. It's hard to make tools.
Yeah.
I don't even
But
know
this
how
was,
you would make tools on the platform effectively. We can get there in the future, I believe, but right now, it's like the tools are always they're so general or generic that it's quite rare that you actually need a new tool, I think. Like
but
the majority of the work is prompting.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is the reason I chose inspirational quotes is because you need to fetch those from somewhere.
Mhm.
And the second thing was it was going a soccer team at school needs filters on it, right? Otherwise, they're going to be trying to find out how to build a Molotov cocktail or whatever, and we don't want to rely on the models to do that for us. And so it generated a pretty decent instructions.md,
That's an
and
amazing. It's an amazing one,
kept on
actually.
updating it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the workflow really, I think you're getting at is that you'd have your main thread, and then you'd start chatting with NapGen,
Mhm.
and then there'd be a stateboard version that's sort of like the toy version that you can use the stateboard to interact with,
Yeah.
and then during that playtime, NapGen is receiving updates from the stateboard based on whenever you sort of press enter or do something like that. And then NapGen takes your prompts and tries to turn them into tests, and also tries
Oh, I
to
hadn't thought about. I've got tests further down. But yes, you're absolutely right.
and then
Um,
NapGen looks at your play and then asks you questions like, well, how should that response have been? Or better yet, I guess we make a widget where if you're running a bot and it gives you a response, that widget has the power for you to click on the response and say what it should have been. And then
yeah.
NapGen sees you making that modification and then puts that into a test, tries to modify the system prompt to make the test passed, may call on O1, may generate a stuck that gets published. I don't know. That sounds like a good
Uh,
workflow to me.
yes. The thing I'd add to that is, and this is essentially what I was doing here. Is okay, you run it in the sandbox, this nap that you're working on,
Yeah.
and NapGen is looking over your shoulder and trying to spot meta-wise where it's clunky, where you're getting friction, are you
Mm,
having to ask the same question twice,
mm.
and that sort of thing. And so you don't actually have to, necessarily interrupt it as the user and saying, "Oh, what I really meant was that," because NapGen sends like you found some friction at this point.
Oh,
What would you like to do
right.
about that?
Yeah, right. So you could actually go to town on this thing because you could have like a three different responses in that stateboard where you're like, hey Dave, I ran this system prompt through Claude, Gemini, and O1. Which one of these three do you like the best? Which one is
Right.
behaving well?
I haven't put an index in there, but if you scroll down, I've done exactly that. It's like in your model. I think. Oh, I think it's here. I think it's this scene 6. I think. Anyway, I did exactly that. Actually, if you go up, I think it's scene 6. It's good. That's down.
Oh, sorry, you want me to go up? Yeah,
All
sorry,
right.
sorry.
Um. Right. Is that there? Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Uh, so I'm assuming that the guy doesn't know. Right, we're gonna choose a runner now. It's like, okay, these are AI models. It's like, what's a model? Then I put in my comment, so I just gives a basic rundown and shake his head about the idiocy of his user.
The shit he has to do, right?
Right, and then let's try each one out, and then uses what we have and runs against each model and each response, and then ask Dave, okay, so we'll rank these.
Yeah, rank him.
It's like which one's best. And it's like, and in this case, it said Gemini 3.5, and he's going, oh, quite like O1, but 4.0 sucked. But it didn't actually, interesting enough, put in priorities on the model, but that again, that same format where you're talking to NapGen, and in the state board, you're talking to this, half, done, limping, horrible piece of shit that you're trying to build, but it's getting better and better. And then NapGen is looking at all this and then saying, right, okay, here's what you need to do in order to update your NapJSON. And it just does it. Or if it's a matter of judgment, it asks, and maybe it's an improvement of instructions.md. As you say, maybe it's additional tests. so on. But that backwards and forwards um, really worked well. And actually, that just fell out of, again, just staring at the JSON and saying, if I'm a newbie, I'm going to, pretend to know nothing about the system. That backward and forwards was really, it just fell out. Oh, it seemed to be really obvious. Yeah, it stubbed out a whole bunch of stuff because it doesn't have the full context.
This is pretty good, man.
And you can put in errors. What's next? Where the tools necessary for the snap are proposed. Because at this point, it's like, you know where it wants to do, but I don't know about tools. I'm an idiot. I've never been told about tools. And so it goes into the tools library. Now it knows more what the intent is. You've got a basic instructions thing. It's like, in order to do that, go into the library and say, okay, right, are these tools, number one, necessary for running these instructions in this napp? Number two, does Dave have permissions to run these tools? And then so the tools part is actually generated completely by, in this case for a newbie, completely generated by NappGen. But the next scenario is like maybe a more sophisticated user that will go in and start messing with these things. But at the start, you don't want to be hunting and pecking. It's a bit like having to choose, your own set of libraries, for a package. It's like, I don't know what they.
Yeah, I don't know. Just pick something. I just want to get going. How does this thing work?
Yeah. So scene 10 where Dave is checking the contents of the napp, even though he doesn't really understand JSON. Right. Okay. And this was
Right,
like
so we can make quite a nice little widget that sort of presents the napp format as like something a bit more graphical and clean. So that might help as well.
And I think this is again maybe if we go for the 3-screen thing, it's like we're working on the napp, and at some point this is the napp we can actually interact with, and it's broken and horrible. But in that working on the napp thing, I think if we are as nice as possible in giving real world descriptions, it's like at this point, it's like, what are permissions about? That sounds scary. And you should be able to, okay, so permission, this is what we mean by permissions. And it's like, okay, well still sounds scary. And you can have an interaction, maybe with NappGen, probably with another napp that is actually an explanator of the
permissions.
JSON. Yeah. And you can have a nice wee comfortable chat, but you're not actually updating something. You just want to understand whether
That's
you're
right.
about
Yeah.
to, by permissions, give away your house. It's like, what is permissions?
Yeah.
Am I giving away right of turning here? What am I doing? Yeah.
Yeah. I also thought of a nice way to have a very large amount of knowledge in a very compact form for these kinds of questions. Now, with NappGen, what's going to happen is that this JSON structure, I'm going to encode it in a schema, and the schema is going to like throw errors and disallow this and that and whatever. And so what we can do is when you talk about the napp format and you ask a question, what I think is a good pattern to follow is to get the bot to formulate a test napp and then try to run it through the checker, which checks both its schema, but also checks its logic to make sure that everything inside it is correct, and then it throws an informative error if it's not. And in that way, that's a very compact way to include a huge amount of information, because if the bot can run a test and then observe the errors and then report back on it, it can do things like Dave can be like, hey, am I allowed to blah, 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 blah? And the bot's like, let me just check. And then it tries what it thinks would work, goes through the errors, and then eventually is like, nah, mate, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's similar to the NL version which I was using throughout this, is every time this new JSON was created, I got the site that was my kind of helper on this one to say, check for coherency with all the previous schemas. So you're not jumping all the way. So each of these JSON outputs should be coherent with the previous one and the scene that's just happened, which has created a change. And so it's not inventing new fields. And remember, it's got the original JSON. You have to follow that format. And so that feedback cycle of checking coherency every time you make a change, certainly in this process, really fantastic. But I think what you're suggesting is slightly, which is if you want to make a change, then we can make the change and then run against the test, then look at the test results and go, for a complex system, that's a much better way of doing it, right?
No, I
Because
didn't mean the test. I meant like just try and make the change in an isolated branch and then see if the system allows it. Or, you know,
yeah, no, that's
oh,
sorry.
that's what you meant.
Yeah. I thought you said, and yeah. Now the
It's not
reason
a
for that is
test.
for
It's not the test as in the napp tests. It's just the system being able to make a tool call experimentally.
yes, it's if I made this change in the real world,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
would it work?
Yeah. So it's like virtualizing or synthesizing.
Yeah, and it's like, well, let me try for that.
Let me query reality, right?
You've got
Like,
all these gateways. I'm going to actually call these gateways up and see if they, you know,
yeah.
see if they
So
return.
it's like that's quite a deep pattern, I think, that we should take advantage of a lot more because we have Git. We can actually do things disposably without worrying about um, mutating the production system, and
Yeah,
so we can very quickly query reality, which gives us a huge amount of confidence and information back, which is a better way than just trying to provide, you know, loads and loads of knowledge and have like embeddings look up and vector databases and all that. It's like, you know,
yeah. Experiment with the real world. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, difference between experimental physicists and theoretical
that's
physicists.
right, that's right, that's right. And so we can save the LLM from being, because hallucinations come from theorizing, but
Yeah.
when you give it the power to experiment, so it's almost like a type of, it's not retrieval augmented, it's experimentation augmented generation, where
Hmm.
it it comes up with a theory, tries the theory, corrects itself, and in doing so, it's the thread's getting richer and richer and richer as well, and so it's able to talk a lot about what it learned along the way, as well as answering the original
Yeah, but
question.
it also I love this pattern a lot. It also doesn't need to run inside of its own test brain. The AI.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It
Right.
doesn't make any assumptions. It's like, well, let's test it, but let's
Yeah.
not, actually spend. If you, for example, had an accountant bot and say, well, if I make this change, I'm going to send £1 million to Tom. I don't want it to happen. So sandboxing it would need some kind of downflow sandbox because to test the real world, you'd actually want to have an API call with your bank, but we don't want to actually to transfer £1 million over.
Right.
But if it doesn't have that sandbox, then it's like, "Mm, we don't know
Yeah.
because maybe it could.
Maybe.
So you're going to have to put a test further upstream.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. That's a really, I love that. At heart,
That's a
I'm an
great pattern,
experimentalist.
eh? That's a great
Yeah.
pattern. It's like, I'm gonna try it and see. So when you were talking about tests here, what should have been happening is that, yeah,
Yeah.
NapGen should have been
I,
looking at what you do and turning it
um,
into tests.
yeah, yeah. At heart. engineers are experimentalists.
I've lost you, buddy. I can't hear you anymore. I don't know what's going on.
Fuck it.
Fuck it. That's all I heard was fuck it. You're very choppy still. I don't know why. I'm sorry.
Yeah, to stub out. But
No, you're still breaking up, mate. I don't know what's happening. I think I might have. Is it me?
I can hear you clearly. I can hear you completely. It'd be
It's
interesting to see
it's
actually
your
where they
upload. I
wouldn't
think
see.
is a bit funny. It's good now.
Yeah, I was checking after that. I can't remember the app that you sent over for Meta the other day.
The hyperverse thing.
Yeah, that one. And so I kept on hitting again and again and sitting very, very close to the router and very, very still. And after about 3 tries, I got in.
Hey.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And I was going, nah, sucks to be in New Zealand.
Yep. Sucks to be in New Zealand.
Yeah, and then got kicked out pretty quickly, probably because the latency dropped or whatever figure that they're using as a gate. But then I was trying to find, are there any tools for actually doing any kind of trace route or, just packet timing, like latency, jitter, and so on, inside of Meta, but there doesn't appear to be any way to do that, which is a bit of a shame. There's ways to do it if you are playing a game on a PC. There appears to be a way of hacking around it, but I'm not. I'm just going straight through the thing, so I have no idea what my latency actually is. But yeah, my upload speed seems Starlink seems to be shaping it very much for download. Upload, I'm on 6.7 yes. Download, I'm like 250. It's like,
Yeah,
whoa,
right.
that's seriously shaped.
Yeah.
So I can't see any way of changing that at this side. Anyway, it sorts itself out eventually.
Okay.
So yes, that pattern of experimentation I love.
Yep.
It would need some thought about what happens if you're asking through an external gateway for something that they just don't allow. But
Oh yeah,
that
but I mean, like
works.
for things that are within our control, that are purely in artifact land, that's rich, man. Like that is extraordinarily
Yeah.
compact in terms of being able to say the right thing.
Yeah,
And
and
then
there's a
what
few
can be
nuances to
happening?
say. Yeah,
What can be
sorry.
happening is that inside the state board, that the experiment can be shown to the user, so the user is actually
Yeah.
aware that there is an experiment going on, which I think would be quite entertaining to watch because you'll be like, oh, this will be funny. And then
Well, it's quite interesting actually, because it's similar to the process I've just gone through, right? You could say, right, I want to test this napp.
yeah,
I will now give you a scenario. Okay, I'm an accountant who wants to transfer £1 million out of my company to this other company. You create all the details and so on. Use this napp. Is that possible? And that would be enough, because that's essentially what I was doing. So then you get, it knows enough about the system. Well, I need to call this this snap, and make that happen. Now the only problem is with that, but we don't need to worry about it now, is if the for example, the bank doesn't allow a test modes, but does allow someone to, for shits and giggles, to try to test whether they can get £1 million out. I was like, and then £1 million gone. But that's details. But I love the idea of experimentation being at the heart of testing, because you can get arbitrary complex systems tested that way, without having to run any kind of emulator, because emulations then themselves need to be tested and so on.
yeah, you just try and do the real thing, and then if it's right or not. Because the bot is usually pretty good at being able to say if it got it right or not. it's not so good at getting it right first time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's also because it tries its little heart out. It also tries and tries and tries and tries again, and it might do something that actually you don't want. So if you're doing a sandbox and say, "Yay, I managed to
Yeah.
transfer £1 million," like, how the hell did you do that? Oh, well, I bounced it off, 3 other banks. It's like, huh,
And then I
really?
lied. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
all right,
Right,
can
where
you
were we?
just
Oh,
give me a little bit of rope, please? I'd like to hang myself.
oh,
Um,
yeah, go ahead. That was like a good hanging.
you do, hey? So
Yeah. Sorry,
what I
that's kind
think
of
you
sounding
do
terrible, isn't
is
it? So hard to tell.
what I think. So first you start off and you're like, well, we need some background information on the napp, and so we're gonna chat to Dave, chat, and then we're gonna
Mhm.
come out with sort of a starter for 10, right? Like a sort of
Yeah, that's
right,
your MVP. It
yeah,
will work, but it just
yeah.
wouldn't really work.
And then from
Yeah.
there, one of the options we can say is like, hey Dave, do you want to try it out? And he's like, oh, okay. And then he goes off and he has a play. And then you say to him, hey, do you want me to amplify the things you were playing with? And then I'll sort of, be you, but just a lot more. And he's like, okay. And then you do a whole lot more stuff and yada yada, the things getting better and better. And Dave's reflecting on how it could be better and worse and all that, right? So that's
Oh,
all fun.
can I, while you're winding up your rope, uh, just an idea. It just came to me there. This pattern of testing against the real world, it would be simple to get an on-the-fly generator of like so it's like you are a bank, pretend to do all the normal bank functions. You could generate a prompt and just throw up an AI as an endpoint stub really early on. So you want quotes, and then in this scenario that I've just gone through, it's like, where do you want your quotes from? It's like, why are we asking him that when it's like, all right, you want quotes, right?
Oh,
Here's
and
we'll
so
throw
you're
up
saying
an
like
endpoint.
you just stub an endpoint and be like,
You
we're
stub an
gonna
endpoint against an app, yeah,
right,
but an
we're
app,
gonna
it's
work on this
just in
later.
time app, yeah,
Yep, that's cool. Um, okay, so this is one path that Dave can go down, right?
yeah.
The other way, another way of presenting the test file that we have
Mhm.
is to, oh dear, is to say, um, okay, Dave, we've got ourselves a little dojo where we put newly minted naps to be assailed by a range of different agents. And so
Mhm.
this you like, do you want to do that, Dave? Dave's like, yep. And you're like, it's gonna cost a lot of tokens. And Dave's like, I'm rich, bitch, lay it on me. And so then
Mhm.
the graphic we would present in the state board is the nap represented as a person with some basic branding and all that. Then we would have like the happy path agent, which is representing the
Oh yeah,
target audience. Then we would
is
have
this the
the
is the persona testing we were talking
yeah.
about
Then we would have the really bad
months ago actually.
agent here, and then you know what I mean. And then we'd have like the scammer or the telemarketer. And then what Dave can do is sit back and watch and sort of look at all the generations that are occurring,
That's nice. I like that a lot.
right? And so it's a better way to present, instead of having just streams of messaging, you present this graph that shows how it's being attacked or assailed or tested in the dojo and how it's
Yeah,
responding.
that would as long as you're willing, and the tokens are never going to get that expensive, but as long as you're willing to do that at each point, it would take a lot of cognitive load off Dave on scenario one.
Right.
Whereas asking, it's like your soccer team. It's like, okay, so
Yeah, and
we're
so you
assuming
can
that the model knows what a soccer team is. It didn't ask, for example, if it's
Yeah.
female or male soccer team.
What you can
Uh,
do then is actually by focusing NapGen on being able to generate the personas and asking Dave, like, what is this? Tell me about the soccer team. What are they like? What kinds of things are they going to ask? And then really what you want to be doing is you want to be enticing Dave to act as each one of these personas so that you learn from his emulation of each persona so that you can build a more accurate model of a synthetic actor, and then you just show Dave how the game goes, because you're like, well, you told me it was a soccer team, so I'm doing soccer teamy things, and you can Dave can steer that. But the point is you want to set it up so that Dave sees how the platform helps him, because he's seeing that these synthetic actors are doing his job of testing for him.
right, a couple points or questions or whatever they are. The first one being, what is the minimum information that we're just asking Dave to do in order to get to the point where we've got enough where we can stub out external gateways,
Mm-hmm.
and we can stub out personas. We can ask him about personas. It's like, what kind of guys are going to be using this? It's like,
Yeah,
well,
or what
they're,
kind of questions are they going to ask?
yeah. And
That's the
then we can create
minimum.
them and then we could say, well, I imagine there's a
Right.
really bad actor. I've got a
Yeah.
real,
Well, we add those. We add those as like standard actors, which are things that Dave might not have thought about. But we're like, these are part of the standard testing suite. These are things you have to
right.
worry about. And
Yeah.
then we can let Dave see, well, this is what it's going to cost. Do you want to switch in the mode of being user pays, or do you want to pay for it? Because in that case, you're going to want to put a spend limit and all these kinds of things. But more
Right.
importantly, what
Mm.
you can additionally add, which I think is where you wanted to get to, is you can also let him in this graph that looks a lot like that Neo4j thing that you like. You'd also be able to make instead of an actor, stub a gateway. And you're like, this is a service. And
Yeah.
so, that's really what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then we stub it out by creating a just-in-time NAP that is effectively very similar to a persona, only it pretends
Yeah.
to be
Yeah, it's
uh,
a
a
machine.
quotation
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, and it returns JSON and all that. And then you ask
Yeah.
Dave, "Hey, what did you want this service to return?" And it's like, "Well, I don't know, blah 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 blah." But either way, Dave is building up this model of not just the NAP that he has, but also the context that it sits in. So that would be all the
Mhm.
API calls that he thinks he might need and all the agents. And then he should be able to watch it. So he could slow the whole thing down from like deluge mode to like one at a time. And it's like this thing goes, hey, give me a quote. And then he watches the message enter, and then he watches his NAP be like, oh, I need to make an API call, and then it calls out, and then he can like step through it, and then correct it. Like he can make it run as slow as he wants, or he can just be like,
Yeah.
auto run.
But also he can iterate it, because what I imagine in this model be easy to do is, okay, let's go for bad actor on your soccer team. We're stubbing out, all the external gateways and that sort of thing. And he goes, no, my experience is a bad actor when he's like 15, he's a real scrote. He's much worse than that. So he's kind of prod that persona. And it's like, we will make that worse than that. Okay.
Right.
We'll keep going. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's about
right,
right.
right. So I think that's
But
really
the,
that's what the dojo is about, and that's really what I think the best version of NapGen that I can think of is, because that's what I would want. I think that's what a beginner user would immediately know what that game is if they're like, here's a person in a room being spoken to by people of varying degrees of quality or morality,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you're
Now
like, oh, I understand.
exactly. And um, yes, I completely agree with that one. The trick here is that reduces the cognitive load. Instead of asking Dave we'll say, hey, we'll simulate it from what you're saying. What we think is here are a few personas and here's a gateway. Let's run it. And he
Yep.
goes, oh, no, 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 no. You can't do that. It's like, right, okay,
Yeah.
right. There's a test. Okay, let's. That's not worse enough. Or you haven't. Oh, I forgot to say it was only a female soccer team. So anyone should, talking about dick pics,
Right.
wrong.
And so that actually means that a good way for us to segment out what our test files are is to break up the test files by persona.
Uh, no, a test should universally pass regardless of the persona.
No,
Because
no,
at
no, no, no,
runtime,
no, 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 no. Like that's like when you do tests, for example, let's take the
yeah.
router, right? Like we've got some basic tests for what the router needs to do, but then there would also be a separate set of tests that are for nefarious or malicious types of.
Oh, I see what you're saying. In a test format, the personas are the ones generating the prompts, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so you can segment them up to be like, this is a teenage soccer mum. This is someone too old to play soccer that just sort of wants to remember their glory days. This is a
Yeah,
nefarious actor. This is and the tests represent the personas and the things that they might say and what we expect the response to be in persona form, which I think is a good way to segment things.
it's quite interesting actually, because also in vector space, a user, now the napp is up, say, a user in vector space may be quite close to one of these personas. And it's like, "Oh, you're starting to act a bit like a
Yeah.
pedophile here."
Oh, right. That's
And
funny.
it's like, hmm. Um,
Hey,
but the
laser
yeah.
pointer.
Oh, thank God. Let me. Oh, please. Where?
So you click on
Where?
that
Where?
and you
Yeah.
go, oh, so that means that you should be in laser pointer mode now. There you go. Laser pointer.
Oh, 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 that makes me so happy.
Laser pointer.
Oh, laser pointer. Oh dear. Can I have a moment?
You can,
That's good.
yeah, you have several.
Okay, so now they what falls out from this pattern, which I love, as well as laser pointer,
Was that a heart?
is
Was
the task the task for napgen. Oh, I can't use my laser pointer. Where's my laser pointer gone?
It's only one laser pointer between us.
Oh,
Oh,
you
you have it. You have it.
ah.
Don't say I don't do anything for you.
Okay, well, it's close, so close. Right, what I was saying is, this model, as I was going through this simple one, I think I mentioned on the text, is doing this simple scenario was actually quite hard
Right.
because
Yeah.
the cognitive load was on Dave.
Right.
Now,
Right.
reducing the cognitive load is what this is all about. Now, my question is, in the napp format, what is the minimum cognitive load that we need Dave to do? Presumably,
The
what you're trying
minimum,
to do.
no, the absolute minimum is for Dave to say that he wants to make an agent. And then all you do is you smack Dumbot down in the middle of the dojo, and you're like, there you go, Dave.
You have an agent, it doesn't do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
What
It's
do you
like,
want to
and
do?
yeah,
It's
it's like, what do you want to say to it, Dave? Do you want to model some types of interactions that people have with it? Do you want to test it for
right. And
bad actors? Like, what do you want it to do?
then we've got off to one side. I have the pointer. Off to one side, we have the kind of the napp JSON. Have you ticked all the buttons
Yeah, like form filling.
test?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But
but
that,
that's not
but
what's presented. Because you'll see in the scenario, it says things like, I need a description. But that's not very nice because
no,
that's gray area between, you don't want to know about the
no.
JSON.
I
You
think I
just want
think
to
that the
create
the
a
nap
map.
the nap format will support being just Dumbot sitting in the middle of nowhere, and that can legitimately be an agent. And then
Yep. Yep.
from there you
Then
just build it up.
the next step is more naturally is like, okay, so what do you want to do with this?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I want a inspirational quote generator. It's like, boom, okay, we've updated that. Like,
Right.
who's going to use it? Right, teenagers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're like, okay, well, here's three teenage types, and just sit and watch them try to use just this dumb bot.
Yeah.
It's like, where's it gone
Yeah.
wrong? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, it's gone wrong here. Like, this guy should not be able to do that. It's
That's
like,
right.
okay, and at the side, uh, we've got make sure we're ticking all the boxes, because at the end we want a fully formed and correct napp with its instruction MD
Mm.
that covers all this. I love that approach, because the cognitive load on this is really just a straight chat. Because at the moment on
Yeah.
these scenes, uh, uh, the naive approach, which is this scenario just gone through, naive approach is, okay, I'm going to walk you through and help you uh, get the information, and I'll fill out the JSON for you. That's fine.
Mm.
But I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, a bit
Yeah,
like
which
a
is kind of
questionnaire.
lame. It's like filling in a form basically, and
Yeah,
it doesn't make it easier that a bot was asking you nicely. You still don't really know what you're doing it for.
exactly.
But what
And
I
it's
like
like
about
now,
this is that
sorry.
you can change the type of discussion. Like what was frustrating me about the scenarios in text was that we were asking basically another mini chat window inside the state board to form, but by
Mhm,
changing the mode of presentation here to be like an agent talking to other agents, you get away from it just looking like another chat window, and it takes on a different sort of it's a different mode of looking at it, and so it encourages the god's eye view of Dave as opposed to just being yet another chain of messages, which is sort of again daunting and hard to think about.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
what I
Okay.
wanted to insert into that is to say that this model of positioning a napp versus another napp versus another napp and
Mhm,
having the
mhm,
communication flow be observable, debuggable, replayable, that is really how all naps and all nap communication should be modeled. So this piece is actually what I think is the next iteration of the block explorer. This piece is what currently shows in the state board as the commit graph, but it's just collapsed down where each branch is represented as an agent and the lines are just the interbranch, the merges, and the pull requests and the merges are the actions going in and out. And so
mhm,
really this is no extra work. This is just the block explorer in this sort of summarize in this branch centric mode. That's all.
mhm. Um, yes, I agree. And yeah, what's the minimum Dave needs to say is like, I'd like to create an app.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, right, now we've got Dumbot, who knows nothing. As
Right.
soon as this process adds any instructions here, then
Mm-hmm.
that is actually the prototype of the app that you're building. It's no
Yes.
longer Dumbot.
No, that's right. It's been shifted in
And you're
some way.
right. And now Dumbot is also an app, so I have its own JSON. So it
Mm-hmm.
needs somewhere to, like, as soon as it gets a bit of instruction, then we move it away from Dumbot, disconnect here, and now we've got your prototype, which all it has is two fields, the name and description,
Yeah, the name that
uh,
was auto generated
and
by NapGen. So it's
and
like,
yeah,
yeah,
and like you are uh
a helpful
a
assistant.
single line, a helpful assistant, yeah. And it's like, okay, so then we've got that being here. And then every time it's like, okay, so there's still going to be a process because Dave might not know that actually all this, he doesn't really care. But the questions, there would still be questions like, okay, so who's going to use this? And then ping again. We could actually start with Dumbot and just say, you are a pissy teenager. You are an Ivy League teenager.
Mm,
You're a soccer mom.
mm.
Um, and
Or
that would
here's a
probably be
funny one that
enough.
we can make.
Uh-huh.
You're me, like you're Dave. It's like I'm gonna act like I'm you based on all your past session history, and I'm gonna say the sorts of
Oh,
things that
that'd
you
be an
say.
interesting one. Yeah, that would be an interesting one.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
that's actually quite valuable because I would love to be able to have a bot that represented you, Mr. Maxwell, and a few of my other friends. And then when I was trying to make a new bot that I thought you guys would like, I could get the synthetic you to appraise it and score it. And I'd be like, yeah, this is good, this is bad, whatever. I'll change this, I'll change
Yeah,
that.
that would
Oh, he'll
be
find that funny.
that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Because it would save a lot of the toing froing. It's like
Mm.
this call is like if I had a synthetic you, it's going, here's a script. A transcript of what we just last talked about. What would Tom say? Um, more interesting, or just as equally as interesting, what I'd love is, if you know that Ravi Burns term, what was it? What what skill the gods degree us to see ourselves as others see us. So, having a bot that was you that you
Mm.
used,
Mm.
I think would actually start prompt hacking yourself because it's like, am I that? Do I see
Mm.
that much?
Yeah.
Am I that much of a dick?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So okay.
anyway, very,
Now,
very interesting. But
yeah, one extra thing I want to add to that experimentation augmented retrieval
mm,
generation thing that we're talking about is that by virtue of the experimentation happening in an isolated sandbox, whenever an
mhm.
experimentation occurs, we can actually kick off multiple parallel calls at varying degrees of temperature to do concurrent experiments against the reality sandbox and then return back and choose from all the responses, which increases the chance that we got it right even further.
Yeah, but that sounds like uh, a back end thing that we shouldn't bother Dave with.
No, no,
Perhaps
no,
other
no, no,
than
no, no. I was meaning
saying,
like, for example, we as let's imagine ourselves as more advanced NAP builders, we would
mm,
be able to have these kinds of tools at our disposal so that, for example, when NapGen was running and Dave was like, hey, can I add like 15 different gateways or something? And NapGen's like, yeah, let me try that. And then it runs like 10 different variations on what it thinks that could mean and then chooses from all of the responses and goes like yes or yes sometimes or yes but or no not at all or whatever.
yeah, I agree with that. Actually, it's reminiscent of when I was doing computer games. One of the last things overnight I used to do is just to set this thing up that simulated random key presses.
Yeah, the monkey
And in the
the
morning,
monkey
it's saying,
something.
yeah, the random, yeah, Chaos Monkey.
Chaos monkey.
Well, Chaos Monkey is something slightly different. This is like the Chaos user.
Yeah, panic
Um,
monkey actually because it's like
yeah, and you come in and it's like, is it still running? It's like, yay! And if it crashed, it's like, I know the key press sequence that managed to make it crash.
right.
And most of the search space was like nonsense.
Yeah.
Uh, but occasionally I'd be like, shit, if you do up, down,
Yeah.
crashes. Very useful, very useful.
Funny.
Yeah, okay. I think we're getting somewhere in terms of the model or the flow that you're
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah, that's very helpful. That's exactly what I was getting at. um I don't think I need anything more than this because I can see now that this block explorer, I had not gone into detail on this block explorer because I was like, it, no one's really asking for it. I want it, but but now when we talk about it as being actually quite fundamental to easing the cognitive load of producing an agent and being able to
Mm.
present what would otherwise be a fairly mundane and dry uh, a block explorer is not the most exciting thing. Like, you're probably not going to mention that on a
Well,
first date, but
yeah.
if actually the block explorer is the dojo where you train agents that have faces and do funny things, now suddenly the block explorer is quite lively, and it's, it's like it's a disco, it's a party.
It's definitely a third date topic. Yeah. But we're talking about first date with Dave here, and he doesn't want to know any about this. And the thing that I'm really excited about this is if we reduce it to simply, you know, that scenario I keep on saying, all I want to do is to be able to talk at the portal
Hmm.
and end up with a nap.
This would give it to
Uh,
you, right?
I don't want to know how you do it. I don't
That's right.
care how you do it. And even I don't want to know about the folder structure. I don't know. I don't
Nah,
care.
nah, but this little graph would, um you need you need to see it in action, otherwise it's just going to be like, you're literally trying to be in the dark. But if we presented you this graph with interactions with other agents, then it all becomes a lot clearer to you what's going on under the hood. And I think that you can't really communicate this in natural language. You need this graph structure, or you won't be able to really clearly extract this form from just looking at messages, I don't think.
I don't think the natural language alone. I don't think the graph alone could do it. However,
Mm,
if you had the nap gen go right, we just ran it past this and check this out. You know, this guy up here did that, and here's why. What do you think should have happened? And then it reorders and so on.
mm.
So
That's quite
the
fun, man. That's really fun. And then you
yeah,
can have like regression tests agents and known fault test agents. So like you'll have an agent that runs an exact prompt that behaves wrong, and then it sort
yeah,
of,
that's yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's actually quite a big thing because when I was doing the 2 weeks ago, whatever it is now, a week ago, the tests for router, the glaring obvious was I want something to fail and actually it's meant to fail.
Mm.
Um,
Because then I guess we could take this view here, and we could actually use it not as a dojo, but as a historical viewer of logs. So, like, if this agent was Reasoner, this agent might be you, and this one might be me, and we can use
mm.
this graph to see what how we interacted with the Reasoner, and how all the other users on the platform interacted with Reasoner, and then sort of run search queries, like be like everyone whose name starts with M, and then you can start to drill down into how the agents are being communicated with, um, by other humans as well as by other agents using this graph structure.
Yes, because that falls out. And also, again, if you had this, some kind of NAP use assessor, let's call it, you could get some quite complex queries there. It's like,
Yeah.
how many people who are using this are getting actually frustrated?
Right,
Uh,
right,
and,
right, right. So you
and then
could
it's like,
present the same graph, but be like, I want an emotional score of frustration
yeah,
translated to color. And then you're like,
yeah,
right.
yeah, because you can spot and the emotion of the person simply through the natural language. And if they're
Yeah, the sentiment.
repeating it and going, just fucking do it, it's
Yeah.
like, "Uh, okay, sentiment analysis. So you can actually cut this based on an assessor, which effectively is a filter, again, through the graph. Um, of how people are actually using it. And it's exactly the same as pretend personas. A
Mm.
human is no different from a bot when you're talking about an interaction being NL. It's different for gateways. Yeah, it's different. Well, yes, it is, but not wildly different. But you can strip out all the personas. You can just get, okay, we've had 1,000 users. How are people getting on?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
not too
And
bad.
then as an author, like as Dave, this would be you being like, oh, so I made my bot public. How's it getting on? And then this is how you would present back a way to view very compactly all of the interactions that his bot had, and a way to get a handle on or an understanding of how to make it better for other users, even though he has no experience with prompt hacking or really
Hmm.
much of anything. But this graphic allows him to navigate the vast array of text.
Yes. And again, the thing that I'm keen on in this one is Dave just being able to talk to the thing, never have to type. And typing includes prompt hacking. So prompt writing,
Mm,
to get it right, is you have to have, I was saying the other day, you have to have a really clear mind in order to get it right. You add in additional complexity of how bots talk to other bots and so on.
mm,
It quite quickly gets fucking hell, quite simple things to trace is really difficult. However, um, if we can ask simple questions, like, I just got a text from a user saying your app sucks because it just allowed me to, say that, you know, uh, Harris is going to win the election, and I disagree with that. It's like, well, okay, is that a problem? Should I add a filter? Where do I add the filter? Maybe it's a constraint. Maybe it's in the sys prompt. Maybe it's only for people from swing states or whatever, or from middle states. You can update that without actually having to go in, because as soon as you have to go in and prompt hack yourself or prompt write yourself, then you've got to really be top of your game
yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
understanding
It's like
how all
that's
the
yeah.
things interact.
It's like
It's hard. It's
that's
a hard
assembly
thing
language.
to
Like
rewrite.
you've
Yeah,
you've ended up in assembly language at that point, and things are going badly.
yeah, yeah. But also with the testing framework, say, right, okay, so that you say want to stop anyone talking about the presidential election. Okay, the impact on that is previously said that there's a function that you could talk about politics. That's
Mm,
politics. So now we run a test. There's a whole bunch of tests failed because we're running in the sandbox with the
hmm.
new prompt. It's like, what do you want to do? It's like, well, I want to put a moratorium for the next 2 weeks. Nobody talks about politics for the next 2 weeks, for example. Um,
All right. So
uh, so,
I think we've got ourselves a resounding sort of a first blush of how the workflow goes, and as it turns out, that workflow appears to be enough to cover how would you like to iterate on a napp as well. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, because it's the same thing effectively.
it's the same thing actually. In that first simple scenario, um, I had a couple
Yeah.
iterations of it because one of the scenes was right. We'll now run this in the state board, which is
Mm.
sort of
So
similar to
that's
this,
actually
and
this
then
is actually all I
we'll get
need.
it back.
This is all I need to build with now. What else can I help you with in the meantime whilst this build activity is taking place? I think we should expect it should be at least another week, maybe another 3 at worst if things get really bad, but I'd expect
Mhm,
another week of no more features until we get naps up. So
mhm.
what can I help you with to make your
Uh,
life better in the meantime?
well, if we go back through, well, the first thing I would like to do is to rerun or re-go through that narrative, not for your sake, but just for my sake.
Mm,
But also, given that narrative, that helps me build the the stubbed out uh, um, naps.
All
All
right.
it really
Well,
needs
oh, sorry,
is
sorry.
sorry. I guess what would be great is I don't know how close we are. The MVP, everything else is stubbed out. Um, uh, JSON for a nap, so we can start.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's
Yeah. So
stubbed out
that
nap.
latest commit is pretty good. I'd expect that tomorrow I'll have a working nap, and that'll be it.
Okay.
It might not have all of the features, like it might be missing the gateways or something like that, depending on how far I get.
Uh-huh.
But I expect to have a working nap tomorrow, and so um, I don't know enough
Okay.
about it to see it all the way through. I just want to make the first iteration and then sort of play around with what it's like to update the code, deploy the code, run the code in Artifact, and then I'll slowly go through all of the isolates and convert them out to naps, and then start
Uh-huh.
recomposing the systems that we already have, like the reasoner, um, and like the files agent and all that, and recompose those as naps, and then I think we'll know a bit more about what else we can and can't have and what the next steps are.
Okay. So basically, to summarize, you're off on a bit of a deep dive, and what we've got, we've got. Yep.
I'm here.
You stop doing that.
Oh,
You're moving
sorry,
around.
sorry. Oh, well, because I mean,
It's-
you're
yeah,
talking, and I don't need my eyes to listen. So I
I
was
know,
just
but no. I've got stereo audio here, and something you're in. This
okay.
you're now.
All right. Sorry,
You're in,
sorry,
and there's a
sorry.
whoosh noise. There's a whoosh noise.
Oh, I make a wish.
You make a whoosh every time you move. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I
sorry,
probably do as well. So, uh,
sorry.
what's okay? Yeah. So, to summarize, so you're on a bit of a deep dive in order to get back up to um a version where the NAP format works.
To
From
incorporate
my
naps
side,
into our platform, which I do declare is the final change, because that is all that Artifact is. It's a nap execution computer, and that's it.
it's quite nice, isn't it? It's quite nice.
That's the
From my
end.
side,
That's the end of it.
I I'll go back through. I'll take that scenario of a simple man trying to make a nap for a soccer team,
Mm.
with this model, just in case there's something we've missed
Mm-hmm.
and there's too much tea biscuits and home in time for medals. Um, just for my
All
own
right.
peace of
Well,
mind.
other
And
areas, other things that we need from you are things like how to do the help files in a way that an agent can dig through it. So how should a nap present information that is pertinent to how either its tools get called or how its natural language prompting works, in such a way that an agent that was considering using this nap for a jitter could get more and more information about it without being overloaded with the information at the start. That's a big unknown thing for us.
oh, that's keep saying this now, but it is actually getting more and more obvious now. We've got the architecture. I can see how we could do that.
Okay,
The
can you
there's
sketch me out a workflow or a cycle that represents how you would see that going, kind of like in a story format, but there'd be no human. It would just be a story made of API calls and the LLM doing some thinking so that I understand
so
what you want it to do.
so if I just meat brain the stubs inside of the JSON for a nap, yes. And I like the narrative format really helps
It's
because
good,
it kind
right?
of
It's natural.
forces you to actually understand it.
Mm.
Um,
It's really good.
uh,
It's really good, that format,
this
because
this
it's actually request reply is sort of like the fundamental paradigm of, I guess, the web, and if it overlays nicely onto conversation, then that fits really well, and it's a great way
Yeah,
to describe what's going on.
it's much easier than drawing a diagram from
I know,
scratch,
I know.
because the diagram just falls out of it
And
after
I gotta
a
say that most
service.
of the time when I think of a complex system, I actually turn the components into people and they have a chat. And like, you know, the
Yeah.
system bus says, "Hey, who's around today?" And then the LCD screen says, "Me, I'm here at address number 579." And then, and like I actually make them
Uh,
talk.
okay. You do know that there's help for that kind of hallucination. I think there are drugs you can get for like
Oh,
when
there's
your feet
definitely
start talking
drugs
to you.
that you can. Well, because otherwise you end up with
um,
a sequence diagram, right? And a sequence diagram is fucking dry. Because if you invert that and you try and make a sequence diagram that represents a conversation that you've had with a person, for some reason it's harder for your brain to parse it as a sequence diagram versus reading a chat transcript.
well, it's faster, but it's when you're on a blank sheet of paper, going from a blank sheet of paper to a model is difficult.
Yeah, but a
Using
conversation's pretty
narrative
easy.
is like it's easy, and
Yeah.
then it's like
All right.
model.
So
But
yeah,
if it's
if you
already
can give me
settled,
that,
yeah, a diagram is better if it's already settled. It's
yeah.
like we'll
If
explain it to you.
if you can get me that chat format of what the dig looks like, the digging through the
Hmm.
help, because I don't know how we're going to implement that, and so I need to understand what you're thinking so that I can put that into code and make it actually work and give us something we can experiment with.
So specifically, this by help. Um, Give me a scenario because it's bot to bot.
Yeah.
Just give me a guess scenario just for a start for 10.
So Dave has set an agent upon a path to figure out how to find out the weather in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And then the agent does a search in the napp registry, searching broadly for weather in Scotland, whatever, like another
Mm-hmm.
area that we need to actually figure out how the queries work is in the search, because the search definitely needs to be using vector embeddings, but
Mm-hmm.
that's another area that you need to solve for us. I think I'm not sure exactly how that works, but anyway, let's imagine we get a short list of search results, and then the
Mm-hmm.
LLM looks at them and then says, "Okay, I've got 10 possible candidates that came back from the registry." And so it would
Mm-hmm.
kick off 10 assessment processes that in parallel would verify if each one could solve its weather problem. So just to consider the first one that starts running, it would be like, this one's called Weather Dundee. And then it like, so it would look at the help file and be like, what is this thing? It does the weather. And then it's like, okay, it's exposed a tool call called get weather. So then it would retrieve out the information about that tool call. And in there, it would find that it says, this is weather about Dundee, and it's like Dundee is in Scotland. Okay, we'll call that sort of starter for 10. Here's a quick summary of what this napp can do for me, because that might be the best one. We don't know yet. Like there's 10
Mm-hmm.
others that are being considered. Then you've got like weather global that can give you the weather anywhere on Earth, but it's only to within a 100-kilometer
So
radius resolution.
basically, this is discovery and this is assessment. So you might discover more than one.
Mm,
Then you need to assess them.
mm-hmm.
Um, Now, those could be embedded. So if you choose this one, then you might have multiple options of the thing that it relies on. So you'd have to discover it. Okay, right. And now, okay, well, let's test that. And that can go all the way down. But also, you're working against an intent. Now, the intent being what Dave wants,
Yeah.
I'd like the weather in Dundee, but he misspells it. A very hard word to misspell, but anyway. And or I want the weather in Perth. Now, I think there's like 12 Perths around the world.
Yeah, well,
So that back path when you're testing is like, oh, I think we found a candidate.
yeah,
Let's check it again. But there might be ambiguity that also involves interaction with Dave and saying, Perth, where? You an idiot? There's
yeah,
like
yeah.
12
That's right.
Perths.
That's right. But then,
Yeah.
and then you also need to sort of keep those things around, because if all you manage to find is the global weather and the Dundee weather, then if Dave asks for the Dundee weather, then suddenly you're like, aha, I've got just the thing, and you can give him that.
Mhm.
But any other time, you're going to use the global weather, and so it's not. There's no one answer. There's just the bot needs to know how to consider its options and combine them on the fly as best it can, but it needs to know how to use that help file to keep digging into the internals of a napp, um, until it can say whether it knows for sure or not. And that knowing might include doing some example calls, like,
Yeah.
experimentation,
Mhm.
where it's like, I'm going to imagine that I want to do this thing, and then I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to assess the results from the napp. Treats the napp as a black box.
Mhm.
Experimentation definitely beats guessing. So,
And it also that points to something really obvious, which is the dynamic generation of help, or the caching at least. Because if you run experiments and this napp uses these gateways, and one of these
yeah.
gateways goes down, you're not going to select it because it's like, and
Well,
so, but the help might be degraded and saying, I can't tell you the weather in South Africa right now, but I still do Dundee.
mm.
So,
So I guess the other option you need to consider is helps not needed, and it can actually be deleted and replaced by experimentation.
um, I'll consider that. It's not a wild idea. It's possibly the right thing to do if experimentation is cached.
Well, it doesn't even
To some
matter if it's
extent.
cached. All that matters is it fast, and is it cheap? That's all that matters.
Yeah, I suppose. Fast and cheap. Why would you not run? Well, the other thing is complexity. If you
I
have
think,
a large number of paths, then fast and cheap might actually get on a
yeah, but
different order of
fast.
magnitude.
So running an experimentation in a lot of cases is going to be the same delay and cost and complexity as digging through the help. But the extra problem is the help had to be generated. The help had to be fit for purpose. It had to be correct. And so I would prefer to do the experimentation path, because it's always up to date and it's always correct. Whereas the help may have drifted, or maybe described from the wrong standpoint, or, you know what I mean?
I'll have a think about that.
Mm.
Because also you want be to be able to have Dave ask. So, um, if I was to say this, what would happen?
Yeah.
Now,
And
this,
then instead of having to rely on the helps, you just do it. And we should focus instead our attention on providing very good AI friendly answers in the error messages, in the functions, in the descriptions of the functions, we can expand those out with information that is of assistance, versus trying to make this whole other subsystem, which is the help subsystem. It would be better if it was in band with the function calls.
I agree, but let me see if I can kick the arse out of that and find a problem with it. But okay, all right. So I'm on helps.
Yeah,
You're
but
on,
it helps, and that bleeds into discovery. So I'm
yeah,
I'm just I'm just trying to list out the major things that I don't know how to do, that we need to figure out at some point.
yeah,
Most of them, I think, are
yeah,
your problem, actually. Um,
yeah, yeah.
What else is there?
Well, the other thing I was going to say is if you're relatively happy with the JSON napp format,
I'm very
um,
happy with it. Yeah.
I can stub it out with a meat brain in terms of narrative. I can even actually fake it inside of O1. Um,
The issue I see is the API gateway stuff. The stubs in the narrative there look incorrect, but unhelpfully, I don't yet know what correct is. I should have a better idea probably by Thursday because one of the first naps I'm probably the second or third nap I'm going to try and make is the OpenAI runner, the thing that actually runs an OpenAI call, and that means that it will need to make an API call, and so at that point, I'll know how to describe the gateway pieces correctly.
yeah, no, that's cool. I'm not at the stage of using gateways at the moment. I'm more at the stage of just the complexity of chaining naps with naps. Now that we
Mm.
can, in the format, do that, and what the implications of that, and files. So it's all inside of the perimeter at the moment. Don't need gateways at the moment. So that's fine. Okay. Mhm. Yeah. All right. So sounds like you need to do a bit of deep dive, and we can keep these short if you discover anything. These calls, but uh,
it's not deep diving, it's implementation. It's pretty weird actually. There is very
yeah,
little to discover. There is just implementing a thing that just seems to make so much sense.
do or do not deep dive.
I honestly
Okay.
think we're at the
Yeah.
end. We're at the end of Artifact. Like its purpose is clear now. It runs naps. End of story. It runs naps that
Yep.
interact using JSON objects to represent function calls, and it stores files to represent state and large state between them all.
Yep. Yep. Okay. I'm happy with that.
Mm.
Okay. So, well, let's. If you're okay with this, tomorrow might be a bit. Oh, actually, no. Tomorrow's fine. Thursday might be a bit weird.
I can't do
Uh,
tomorrow. Sorry, I gotta go to an appointment.
oh, you mentioned that last time.
Mm.
Yeah. Thursday might be a bit weird. But I don't know yet. So might need, if I'm around, I'll ping.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I'll get on with
Yeah.
helps. But before that, I will do another scenario based on this new model and see if we can kick the arse out of it and see if we can
Yep.
break it. But
I can still provide fixes and minor features to long thread if you need it. But I'm hoping that your productivity is not affected by it. I'm sorry I can't do speed improvements until we have naps.
yeah, no worries about it. That's fine. As long as you let us know. Well, you've moved the URL. I texted back. I don't know who's using the old one, so it's difficult. I can't actually say we're about to wipe it out.
Yeah.
Uh, so
I
to
can just
be
put a
polite,
redirect in
yeah,
there or whatever really.
yeah, but people will, again, weirdly, they really love that persistent URL.
Mm,
Really love that persistent URL. So, but
mm.
that would be destroyed. Um, so I think I'll see who I know are using it and say pass the word.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too
Case,
much.
yeah,
I am actually filled with confidence that we have found the bottom of the tar pit or the well, basically. Naps naps solve all the outstanding
you know,
problems.
interesting enough, just before going on this call, with that scenario, I know we've changed it slightly. Well,
Mm.
we've not changed it. We've changed the flow, but the JSON's still there. What I was thinking is in this long thread I've got, it knows the format. So it's like write me the napgen. I think it could probably give a bloody good job of it,
Mm.
and that'll be it.
Okay.
Be quite interesting. Might do that just for shits and giggles and tokens. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll leave it to it, eh?
Yeah. Cool. All right, man. Well, let's just ping if anything interesting comes up. Otherwise, probably towards the end of the week, something.
Okay.
Yeah. But
If you get
plenty
a
to be getting
chance,
on with.
do please have a listen to that recording with Ben. I thought it was very insightful.
Yeah, I'll do that now. Yeah. Cool. Nice one.
Sweet. Thank you for the narrative.
All right.
And I will see you with some napp hosting abilities.
Yeah. Go do it.
Okay. See you later, buddy.
I'm looking forward to this. See you, man.